What a win for West Ham. Is that a game changer or indeed a job saver for Slaven Bilic?
I wouldn't quite call it a job saver just yet, but a great result, especially being 2-0 down. Got to give him a lot of confidence going into the weekend. So, yeah, well done. It was, do you know what made it even more impressive? Because it's a good Spurs team. We all know that. Pochettino's doing an incredible job. But it's very rare you see a Pochettino team go 2 goals up and get pegged back to end up losing the game in 90 minutes. So a lot of credit to West Ham, a lot of credit to Bilic, and should go into the weekend game, which is a massive game, with a lot of confidence now.
Be honest, though, after that abject performance against Brighton on Friday night, and Slaven said, I've got to sort these players out, did you think he was capable of turning it around that quickly for that game at Wembley, away from home?
Look, if I'm
poles apart those performances, aren't they?
It was, and look, and there was a lot of changes made by both teams. If I was West Ham at this present moment, the Carling, you know, it's not the Carling Cup anymore. So
Carabao.
that's that Carabao Cup. Yeah, it wouldn't interest me that much. The league performance, now getting out of where we are in the league, I would be throwing everything into that league to get out of the position we're in to try and climb up that table. But at the end of the day, do you know what? When you're down there, any result, any positive result is good. So, you know, it could have been especially being 2-0 down, it could have been a nightmare night for them. But actually, no, they've come off. And you imagine them in the change rooms, they'd be delighted with that, all tapping each other on the back. The manager, can go in now into the weekend, which, like I just said, there's a crucial game for him, with confidence and, just a little bit of pride back, especially from what happened on the weekend.
Simon, do you think it takes any of the pressure off of Slaven?
I don't think it hurts his cause. Obviously everything gets washed away at Selhurst Park on Saturday afternoon if Palace beat them. Now, of course, this is a game that both sides have a great deal of desire to win for obvious reasons. Palace because they are bottom of the league, and West Ham because they're coming under significant pressure by being there and thereabouts. Their performance, it wasn't just the fact they got beat by Brighton, it was the manner in which they got beat. They were, for want of a better expression, they were rank. I watched the game and there was nothing there from them whatsoever. And Bilic looked, very, we should look downcast, but he looked a very demoralised man. Now, interestingly, before the game, we saw David Sullivan doing an interview with Jamie Carragher, I believe.
Gary Neville.
Gary Neville, was it? Sorry. And it's a strange time for a chairman to do an interview directly before a game. It can only be about one subject matter. It can't really help. David has the right to say what he wants. He's the joint chairman of West Ham, but I don't think there was going to be anything else other than leading questions. And I don't know if that's the most constructive time to verbalise what he may or may not feel. The idea that Bilic has got 2 games, I'm not sure. Gold and Sullivan don't have a track record of taking managers out of jobs early.
Well, he said in that interview, I see Slaven as the manager of this football club till the end of his contract, which is until the end of the season, unless there are, I think the expression used, exceptional circumstances.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's again, it's a point that goes to the heart of how they operate, which is they let contracts run down, which is an interesting way for club owners to operate. Actually, I think it's quite revolutionary, it's thinking, because what your job is as a chairman is to get the best amount you can from the manager during the time he's employed. They let Sam Allardyce's contract run down. They are doing the same thing potentially unless the wheels really come off. And quite frankly, why West Ham would want to change now when really there's not a lot that a new guy can come in and do. If the players are so disparate and dysfunctional, was that performance against Brighton illustrated, you're going to have wholesale changes, and you can't do that till January anyway.
Do you think the West Ham board really don't want to sack Slaven Bilic unless they really have to? Is that the vibe you're getting?
Nobody wants to sack anybody,
No.
and
yeah, but some are perhaps more trigger happy than others.
Well, it's not a case of you want to; it's a case of you feel that you have to.
Have to, yeah.
And of course, there is, these are experienced men. Whether you agree with David Gold or David Sullivan or whatever, they are experienced football operators from Birmingham to West Ham, and there's a lot of antipathy towards them because of the move from the Berlin to the stadium and some of the things that have come out of their mouths about being in the Champions League and that sort of thing, which doesn't it kind of beggars belief that they'd be saying that. And then, of course, the net spend is 43 million in the transfer window, and no way is that going to facilitate any upward movement for West Ham. You know, so you look at West Ham and you think, what kind of condition is this club in to really fulfil the demands of an owner that clearly has a manager that he possibly doesn't want to fire, but is most likely to allow his contract to expire. That's most likely what's going to happen, unless we're in a situation where West Ham are suddenly cut loose in terms of they drop into the bottom three, which can quite easily happen on Saturday.
Of course.
You know, and then all of a sudden, if they start finding themselves in the bottom three and they become adrift, you know, in the bottom three, and they're 2 or 3 points behind the fourth side, then you might find people's hands being slightly more forced than they currently are.
But Slaven said to us after the game on Friday, it's both good news and bad news that he's been in this position before. Do you remember they lost 5 last season? He's faced more questions about his future than anybody else, and he's calm about it. He says, "Look, I'm doing my best. I'm a fighter. If that's what they do, it's what they do."
But you can't panic. He's the manager of a football club, and the players will see that straight away. Even when we had Karen Brady on the show, and part of I wasn't brave enough to ask the question, if I'm being honest, but you're going to let him go at the end of the year. So you're letting him sign players. He's having a big say in it, but to me, it was clear. He's going at the end of the season.
But maybe that goes to the heart of a £43 million spending, doesn't it?
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe.
But also, do the players not feel that as well? There's a lot of players there knowing this is at his last year. I can.
But don't you players always know to some extent? And obviously you've moved into coaching now. But don't you always know that to some extent your performances control the destiny of a manager? And managers go into jobs half expecting at some point they're going to be fired. You players well know that. So whether his contract's going to expire or whether he's going to be fired, does that really affect... If he's strong in the dressing room and he's determined to go out strong, if he's going to hold that dressing room together by saying, I'm going to go out at the end of this season, but I'm going to go out strong, would that still not concentrate your mind as a player that, OK, he might be gone, but I've still got to do my job? Yeah,
no, look, of course you've got to do your job, but at the same time, it's not just the players who are playing who are doing well. It's some of the players then who ain't, who are out of the team, who are in the squad, who do have 2-3 years left, who you would probably want to move on because you don't fancy him at this present moment. Might say, well, hold on a second, I don't need to go anywhere. I feel you're going. You're going at the end of the season, so I might. My contract's a year longer than yours, so I'll wait and see who the next manager comes in because he might fancy me. So they're the problems I feel you can get when you see a manager going into his last year of his contract. Look, unless something drastically, really negative and they're cut adrift, which you're completely right, which can happen. I don't see him acting. I don't believe they want to act. And it would take something beyond special from now to the end of the season for him to stay in the job.
It's a small window in time. We accept that. But let's allow Slaven his moment for tonight. A fantastic result. Again, let's underline, West Ham were abject on Friday and Tottenham were sensational on Sunday. Going into that game tonight, you'd have got long odds on West Ham winning there tonight in 90 minutes. Long odds.
Imagine the odds at half-time.
Yeah.
Yes. So you could easily... Now, they could go on a run now. If he finishes 10th, what do the West Ham board do then? With a net spend of 43 million, as you say?
Well, they can do as they choose. They can give him a new contract just because, you know, we are in this world. The downside of a manager succeeding is that he becomes a sought-after commodity, and if you haven't got him under contract, he walks out of the door. If West Ham are prepared to run that risk and Slaven Bilic pulls himself together or pulls the club together and gets them up the pyramid, up the table, up to 10th spot or 9th spot or whichever spot you're alluding to, and all of a sudden he's a sought-after commodity, well, he'll be in a position to dictate to West Ham the terms of his contract. He might actually say, well, actually, I've had enough of this place. I wasn't given the support that I should have been given. I wasn't given a new contract when perhaps I should have been given one, and I might go somewhere else. So does that answer your question?
Partly.